If you were only to be able to buy a couple of books in your whole life, I would probably own this. I would own a Bible, and I could give you a few other books that I would own, but this is 100% in, my top 5. Now, what I want to share with you is a couple of passages from this book because it's fascinating. So what are we talking about right here? I'm at the chapter of the zodiac and the signs, okay? And it's talking about observation, science by observation. And this is what the ancient people did, all right? They looked up. They did not have tools like we have now. They had an understanding of their surroundings, they had an understanding of nature, and they had observation, okay? And this is the oldest, this dates back as old as you can find, okay? Any history that you can find will back up that the ancient people were looking at the stars. They made observatories to look at the stars, okay? This is why I find Tycho Brahe fascinating. And Tycho Brahe, for those of you who don't know who he was an astronomer, and back then he was an astronomer and a mathematician and a scientist and all this stuff. And what this guy would do is he would look and watch the sky. He watched the sky for over 25 years every night, and he mapped the stars and where they went. And he was so accurate that the kings, the queens, the lords, the ladies, they would all use him. They would pay him to come in and draw them their sky maps. That's because this guy was so phenomenally accurate at it. And he eventually took on an assistant. The assistant's name was Kepler. Kepler would use mathematics. He wasn't an observer. And what would happen is Kepler's, because he would use math, and because the planets, which are wandering stars, basically, another word you can call them wandering stars, they go against the grain of everything else. So the stars in the sky, and this is, if you think we're spinning on a ball, I mean, I God bless you. But what's going on here is the stars in the sky have been spinning around us for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, forever, right? Just rotating around us slowly. Now, the ancient people understood this. They watched these stars spin around us. They realized that the planets, there are other stars, there are a number of other stars that don't stay in that pattern. They do their own thing. These were then called wandering stars, okay? And now we call them planets. But the wandering stars they weren't fixed and locked in their position. They would wander through the sky. Now, people like Tycho Brahe would watch these planets wander, and he would map every single thing that he did, and he would trace them, and he realized that they form these patterns. And when you really start digging in, these patterns look a lot like energy, like vibration patterns, like cymatic patterns. It's just fascinating stuff. And this assistant Kepler, he would do math. He wouldn't observe. He only did math equations. And almost every single time when they asked him to, tell them where a star was going to be, or where this was going to be, or where that was going to be, he would be wrong by a lot because he didn't use observation. He only used math. And Brahe used observation. Now, when it came time they were looking for somebody to say what shape the earth was, and they were starting to ask questions like that. Now, Tycho Brahe, who believed the earth was flat and non-rotating, would not budge when they were trying to get him to, wanted to use him as the face of this new, idea of earth. And because he had been observing it for so many years, he understood that we were not moving. It would be impossible to see the same stars fixed in the same location, spinning slowly above us. And he knew where the planets were going to be. He knew everything based on observation, okay? Now, since he wouldn't budge, they decided, okay, well, if he refuses to say what we want him to say, how about Kepler, his assistant? Even though he sucks at his job, but maybe he'll be a yes man for us. So they asked Kepler, and Kepler, of course, by the by the look of it, by history, Kepler obviously said, yes, say whatever you want. I don't give a damn. So yeah, we're on a spinning ball, we're on this, we're on that, it doesn't matter. Who knows what he said? I wasn't there. In fact, I don't even know if he's a real person. But history shows us that they took Kepler's work, they threw away Tycho Brahe, and they taught us Kepler. And then we get Kepler, and we get all of these other people, we get all these other ideas when we go to school, but we do not get taught like Tycho Brahe. Maybe they skimmed over his name, and there's a reason for that. Now, why is he relevant, in my opinion? Because they named a moon crater after him, for crying out loud. He's obviously pretty relevant, okay? He obviously did some things. There are books about him. He is written about, you know, we did get taught about him in school for about 2.5 seconds, and they skipped right over him and went to all these other knuckleheads. But when you start to understand that he was observation-based, and he knew and he understood exactly what was going on. The earth is not moving. Now, for further proof in this book, it talks about how, let me read here. So, ruins of primitive astronomical observations have been discovered in all parts of the world, although in many cases, modern archaeologists are unaware of the true purpose for which these structures were erected. While the telescope was unknown to ancient astronomers, they made many remarkable calculations with instruments cut from blocks of granite or pounded from sheets of brass and copper. In India, today, such instruments remain, and they are still in use. They possess a high degree of accuracy. Okay? And these instruments exist, and they are made of stones and copper and brass. So they made observatories thousands and thousands of years ago. I'm not talking NASA equipment here. I'm talking sticks and stones, okay? And they made this stuff work, and it's accurate to this day. If we were on a spinning ball hurling through outer space, millions and millions and millions of miles a year, millions of miles an hour, just ripping through the galaxy, that would be impossible. I'm sorry, these observatories would not be working today. Now, there are in Jaipur, sorry, I'm going to hack the hell out of this. In Jaipur, Rajputana, India, an observatory consisting largely of immense stone sundials is still in operation today and accurate. The famous Chinese observatory on the wall of Peking consists of immense bronze instruments, including a telescope with a hollow tube, no lenses. It's a tube. These places, all around the world that have been opened for thousands of years, they are mapping where the stars are, where everything is, where the planets are going to go. It's all based on observation, and they still work. I'm sorry, I find it really hard to believe that if we were spiraling endlessly through space, that all these stars should be the same. Do you realize the odds of that it's not possible? You would have to have, the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, and then going around the sun 66,600 miles an hour, and then chasing the sun through the galaxy. So also, when all this is happening, the stars all around it are also doing the same exact rotations. All of it doing the same exact, the sun, it's just doing the same exact tumbling together, every single thing. Give me a break. It's much more likely that this is a still surface and the stars are the only thing that moves. The pole star in the middle doesn't move. Here's your pole star in the middle. All the other stars are just go around and around like a merry-go-round. Makes more sense to me. I don't know. And then you have, I mean, there's so much proof. It's unbelievable. But I want to read a little bit more because this stuff is fascinating. So now, if you really dig into the zodiac signs, the 12 signs, and I talk about this a lot because the 12 signs are the 12 apostles, the 12 tribes of Dan, let's see, the 12 knights at the round table. It is Hercules and his 12, the adventures of Hercules, I forget the name, but he goes through 12 missions, whatever the heck that one's called. But I mean, it never ends. The 12, the 12, the 12, the 12. Now, where it gets interesting is that this book, some authorities are of the opinion that the zodiac was originally divided into 10 instead of 12 houses or solar mansions. In the older time, there were two. Oh, and this is interesting where it says solar mansions, because there's a part in the Bible where it talks about how God, how Jesus says, or somebody says that there are many houses. It's a saying. It's one of the quotes in the Bible. It talks about how there are many abodes in his mansions, or many mansions in the house. What they're trying to say, I forget the exact quote, you can look it up. What they're trying to say is that there are many houses in my Father's abode. They're talking about the sky clock. They're talking about the houses of the zodiac, okay? But anyway, I skipped off track. The solar year was composed of 10 months and 36 days each, and 5 days sacred to the gods. This is how the calendars used to work. So there were actually two. People would simultaneously use two calendars, a lunar and a solar calendar. And the solar calendar was used, so it says, in early times, there were two separate standards. One was solar and the other was lunar, used for the measurements of the months, years, and seasons. The solar year was composed of 10 months of 36 days each, and 5 sacred to the gods. The lunar year consisted of 13 months and 28 days each, with 1 day left over. The solar zodiac at that time consisted of 10 houses of 36 degrees each. So there was a time where we had 10 zodiacal signs. They added, and according to this book, the Manly P. Hall book, Secret Teachings of All Ages, they added Libra, the Libra scales. It was inserted to the zodiac by dividing the constellation of Virgo and Scorpio. At that time, one sign into 2 parts, thus establishing the balance at the point of equilibrium between the ascending northern and descending southern signs. The Rosicrucians, Their Rites and Mysteries by Harvey Jennings. That's where that comes from. Let's see, on this subject, Isaac Meyer states, we think that the zodiacal constellations were first 10 and represented an immense androgenic man or deity. Subsequently, this was changed, resulting in Scorpio and Virgo, and then in making 11 after this from Scorpio, Libra. The balance was taken, making the present 12. So there are, there's lots of research out there that there were 10 originally. I believe there were probably less, and it goes back and back. But I mean, what the point is that we haven't been told much of anything, and it's important to read and to learn, because I got to be honest. I've been doing social media for a year, and there are a handful of people teaching this stuff. The ones that do get highly censored, and it's a shame, because it's a shame. You're gonna censor people for reading stuff that we get out of books that have been written for a long time. I mean, let me see the date on this book. Manly P. Hall, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, originally published in 1928. We're talking some old books here. And these people that were writing this stuff a long time ago, they knew some stuff, and we don't. So you don't have to believe it. It's in a book. I don't have to be fact-checked either. It's in a book. All right? So the fact-checkers out there, it's ridiculous. I'm not sure who you are. Maybe, because I know you're a person. A lot of these fact-checkers, you know what it takes to be a fact-checker? Nothing. You don't need anything. You don't need a degree. You don't need anything. The background is ridiculous. It's a joke. So in a lot of cases, you got someone like me that spends all of their time reading books like this, right? Filling my head with knowledge of books like this, and then I get some fact checker, some little dweeby 19-year-old in his underwear, probably picking his nose in his mummy's basement. He's now a fact checker, going to be fact checking and pulling my videos, when I probably have more information inside of my left pinky finger than these morons have, But it's okay. It's okay. It just is the way of the world. The more you get fact checked, the more you're on top of the target. Understand that. I love you all, and this is for entertainment and education purposes only.